Rube, how are you, pal?
I'm doing great.
So,
I'm getting ready to go down tomorrow. Gone.
Yeah, this is our last time with you in like 5-6 weeks.
Yeah.
It makes me sad.
Unless I call in.
Yeah, I'll call in, but it's not the same. It's not in person tomorrow,
Yeah.
So I know you're getting excited for the Phils.
Yeah.
I know you got to be kind of concerned. I mean, there's strife. Rube, we got strife. we got Bryce, Dave.
Do you remember strife such as this?
Oh, he's seen a
in
lot.
In your years?
I've had a lot of
In
strife.
your years, the strife.
So how does that strife compare to this strife?
Were you a general manager of Cliff Lee? I just want to make sure.
I think this is a this is a blip in the action, I think.
Did Jason Worth report to you? Yeah.
Rube, did you ever call a formerly elite player not elite anymore, or no?
Well, he had his share, actually.
I did. Yeah.
I could have said it about some guys.
Rube, what do you make of this? Look, your guys that declined, it was a pretty natural age decline. Ryan Howard had the injury. Chase had the knee. Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay, obviously, things went awry with their arms and stuff. But, like, you didn't say it, but you could have. What do you make of what's going on here?
I honestly think that he was just being honest. I don't think there was any purpose behind it. I think maybe it was something that they had talked about internally or something like that. But I don't think that Dave Dombrowski's comments, one, I don't think he thought that it would be blown out of proportion like it has been at times here. But I think he was just sort of being honest and hopeful that, Bryce would be back being Bryce. He's a great player. Hopefully we can get him back and be great again.
Is there anything wrong with what he said?
I was just a little surprised that he said it, but because, typically you don't say that sort of stuff, but I don't think he said anything wrong necessarily. I think he was just being truthful and just being honest. And it was taken a little differently from Bryce.
All right, let's
how much of this is Bryce is how much of this, in your estimation, is Bryce is impossible to deal with behind closed doors? Because he's the star, and that's just wearing thin.
I just think Bryce has a ton of pride, bro. This is a guy who wants to be great all the time, and he doesn't. Like most of us, we don't like to be questioned about whether or not we're great or we're doing a good job. I think as an employee, you don't want to be questioned. I think that's just a normal, visceral sort of reaction. I do think that some of the stuff that's going on right now with that podcast, I think that podcast was done like a while ago. And so this is all stuff that's sort of resurfacing. And yes, it was his feeling at the time. But I got to believe that at some point these guys have, gotten together and talked again.
Well, he spoke 3 days ago or whatever and said the same stuff.
Yeah, he showed up in camp in a bad mood.
He showed up at camp in a bad mood.
He did. And if I'm a betting man, I would think that has been resolved somehow, some way. That's my thought on it.
Well, the way I look at it, Rube,
I strongly disagree.
Hold on, James. They had 4 months. They had 4 months since what was said in October.
But they did talk since then.
But he showed up in a bad mood. I mean, listen, is it possible in the last 72 hours?
Did it fester for him? Probably.
Dombrowski and Middleton got together with Bryce and said, all right, let's settle this down. Maybe. But as a person who could consider betting on it, I would bet against it. I think the player is in a bad mood. I think it's an issue. I think the general manager, by the way, and I'm calling him GM, he's vice president of baseball operations. I think he's in a bad mood about the player. He's not going to say it again. But I think there's 2 things now Dave Dombrowski's got against Bryce. 1, everything he thought before he made his comments in October. 2, how Bryce reacted. I mean, there's a whole new. Because if I'm Dave Dombrowski, it's like, whoa. Holmes, I said what I said in October. It's now mid-February. You showed up in training camp, spring training, and made this a whole nother level of a thing. If, by the way, especially if I said to you in November, I'm sorry, bud, shouldn't have said it. Didn't mean it. My bad. Like, let's say Dombrowski said that because Dombrowski walked it back publicly. So, like, if I'm Dombrowski, I'm like, dude, I thought we dealt with this 3.5 months ago. Why are we here again? If I'm Dombrowski, I'm in a bad mood, and we know Bryce in a bad mood.
I think that. But is Bryce in a bad mood and also in great shape? Is Bryce in a bad mood but also just focused in on what needs to be done?
The one thing I will say about Bryce is,
he's always focused.
That Arcia thing, it's real. Like, if he's challenged, Bryce Harper's Bryce Harper, man. He's
Yeah.
gonna. I know he said that this isn't a motivator for me, but I think that his pride in the fact that he wants to be the best player he can be, I think it will motivate him in some way, shape, or form.
Well, that's also why I'm not, just to be clear, if you're just tuning in, I'm not that concerned short term, like meaning the season. I think Bryce will hit third, hit well, play fine, play excellent, and not necessarily be I don't think this issue is going to be the reason they don't win the World Series if they don't win the World Series. To me, the concern twofold on this one, on this topic, twofold issue for concern for me. One, long term. Will he be here long term? Are they going to want him? Is he going to want to be here? Because I've seen enough to know when you lose a player like Bryce Harper, you lose a lot. I've seen it with Mike Schmidt out the door. I've seen it with a lot of players out the door. So, it's hard to replace that. The other concern is just for me as a fan, and I'm sure this resonates with a lot of you, I just wasn't in the mood for another one of these. I mean, we have enough of this with AJ and the Eagles, teammates and Jalen. Like, we've had enough of this stuff. And you just want some peace sometimes, and it feels like there's not peace. I'm excited to see these guys. I know there's been a low morale amongst the fan base, obviously, for all the playoff failures. But there is some new blood here this year. And as I've said a few times this offseason, this is part whether they succeed or not. But if they succeed, this is how you try to go from making the playoffs 4 years in a row to 10 years in a row. You hope in there you win a World Series or two or more. But one of the goals for the Phillies is to sustain this beyond Bryce and Wheeler and Schwarber. I mean, that's what the Dodgers have done. I mean, Kershaw, to the best of my knowledge, right, Ruben, was the only player that was on their team last year that was on their team when they first made the playoffs like 15 years ago. I mean, everyone else
turnover.
Everyone else changed.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do.
Turnover.
And that's part of what concerns me about the Bryce thing. When we're having this conversation today, what concerns you and how level of concern are you on the Bryce thing? My number one concern is I don't want Bryce Harper not on the Phillies, and I do fear, if there's another year of discontent, they're unhappy with him, he's unhappy with them. I've seen enough sports to know sometimes that leads to a parting. And I've also seen enough sports to know when you lose a player of Bryce Harper's caliber, even if he's not what he was 5 years ago, typically when you lose a guy like that, you do not replace him with a comparable player. And normally you fall off a freaking cliff.
So two things that will happen that will put this away. One, the games are going to start, the WBC, and these players are going to be away and what have you. The other thing is winning. If you win, all this stuff goes away. If you win baseball games and you're having a good season and people are playing well, all this stuff you put in the past. When the question was, I'm very mildly concerned about what's going on with Bryce and the front office right now. I would be more concerned if things sort of go south. As far as, the team not making the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, then things get a little sketchy for me. But, I'm excited about seeing, you're talking about this turnover. I'm excited about Justin Crawford. I'm excited about bearing down on Aiden Miller because he's a super talented Painter. Those three guys are really important. They're super important because if they get the production that they need out of those guys, then it takes the heat off the organization, I think. And it also helps enhance the longevity of their ability to be great, to be good.
I agree.
And that's really important. I'm excited about seeing. I am excited about seeing Adolis Garcia to see if he can actually impact this lineup somehow, some way.
I'm more in the skeptical category on him.
And you could be. Of course,
there's
the last 2 years have not been good for him.
Yeah, look, it's a little bit of a new toy, but it's also like a damaged toy.
But he's also got, it's one of the guys that actually has some energy, some character. He's got, he has ability because he's an outstanding athlete. He's a very good right fielder, and he's got tremendous power, and he's a beast. I mean, you've seen him with his.
I've seen him.
I mean, the man's a beast. But I think what is important about him is that I'm hopeful that he has a solid season because he can impact the team both on the field and off the field because he's got that energy piece that, a lot of these guys in this clubhouse don't have. They're super professional.
Yeah.
They're winners. And they play like, they want to win. And I'm talking about the core players, but they also do need a little spark like they got out of Harrison.
Well, who's going to adequately protect Bryce this year?
I think they're going to flip-flop those two guys. I think that here's my feeling. You either flip-flop Schwarber and Harper in the lineup for the protection piece, Or
meaning Schwarber
or
bats 4.
You somehow Schwarber bats 3 and Harper bats 2. Or you lead off with Harper, and you talked about this yesterday, but my feeling is if you want to go left, right, all the way down the lineup till Crawford, I think that would be the best way to do it. That would be the best way, and then you have JT hitting probably in the 8 hole, but you have a JT 8, Crawford 9, and you go left, right, all the way through the lineup until you go, until the end, until you go Crawford or Harper. And I listen, I know he doesn't like to do it, but Shohei Ohtani does it. He's the best player in baseball.
Why does he not like to do it?
I think that he likes the ability. I mean, he feels very comfortable in the 2 and 3 hole just because he wants to see the pitcher pitch and make pitches, in the beginning of the game. I can understand that. If you don't have that mentality, you can't have him do it because it's a mentality to hit. In the one
but
hole.
here's my issue with that, Ruben. Like what you're saying there. I need, and I think the Phillies need, Bryce to do what is ever needed. Like one of the issues I think the Eagles had with Jalen this year is they felt like he wasn't willing to run, and the playoff game was an abomination of not running. And I think there's like, dude, this is what we need. Like it's nice that you do what you want to do, but this is what the team requires. The offense is not good enough for you not to run, Jalen. We need you to run. And that's the way I view this Bryce thing and how I think the Phillies probably view the Bryce thing. It's like, dude, it's all good and well in an ideal world for you to do what you want, but it's not an ideal world. If we need you to lead off, lead off.
Here's the thing about that. I don't disagree with that thought process. Here's the problem. If you put a player of his caliber in a position that he does not feel comfortable in, it's hard for him to make the adjustment to be comfortable.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do. And what do you want? You want the most production out of the guy?
But
If it's something that he's adamant about, then I would absolutely not pursue it.
Well, I'll say this. When I got a guy for 13 years, and by the way, when they play baseball to start the season, it's only late March, I got some time to freaking experiment. At some point, get in there and hold a bat for 4 weeks and see how it goes. And if it's not working, then, okay, we'll revert. But, try it. Not trying it to me is Ben Simmons. I'm just not going to try it. What good does that do me? Try. Find out. Experiment. My team's probably making the playoffs any which way, so give it a go.